President Cyril Ramaphosa has thrown his weight behind Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana, brushing off mounting calls for his resignation amid ongoing budget uncertainty. Godongwana is now set to table the national budget for a third time on the 21st of May, an unprecedented move in South Africa's democratic history. Opposition parties, including the EFF as well as the MK party, have demanded his removal, accusing him of failing the public. But Ramaphosa has stood firm, rejecting these calls. To unpack the political implications, we're joined now by political analyst Dr Ntsikelelo Breakfast. Dr. Breakfast, good to have you on the program this evening. How would you interpret the political fallout that's really surrounding the failed VAT hike, but also the pressure on Minister Godongwana to resign? Is this reflective of deeper governance or communication issues within the ANC?
I think the minister could have avoided what had happened, because in the beginning, when the budget was put on hold, when the minister could not table the budget, to me that was a sign that this thing of value-added tax going up was going to be a project gone wrong. So I think he should have given in terms of the demands of other political parties, because it stood to reason that things are not going to go according to plan. But he created too much confusion for many sectors of the economy. And because of that, I think our economy also has been dealt with a blow in a big way. Now, the minister is responsible for fiscal policy, and I think he should take the blame for this. I think he was worried about where the money was going to come from in terms of the shortfall if he had done away with the value-added tax in the beginning. But I think the writing was on the wall that he was fighting a losing battle.
You mentioned the VAT reversal. Do you see this as a victory for opposition parties, or more of a tactical retreat, if you will, by the ANC-led government ahead of these all-important national elections or regional elections next year?
No, I think it is a strategic win for opposition parties, because the minister did not give in to the demands of opposition parties in the beginning. Remember, the ministry in question did change gear, but at the same time, there was a ruling that was made by the High Court, and the minister struck a deal, I think, if I'm not mistaken, with the DA outside court. So that was a blow to the minister and Treasury. So the minister, all in all, I think has been dealt with a blow in a big way. It's not only a technical matter, it's a matter of the minister not following policy and a procedure.
Right. But also interesting, as mentioned in my intro, the president has defended Godongwana, framing the budget saga as part of a more open, consultative process, if you will. How credible is this narrative that's being built? And does this signal a real shift in executive accountability?
Well, the president and the minister at a political level, I think they, they work side by side, at a political level. But I think this has had national consequences, very bad national consequences, because I think the financial sector in particular, it was very much confused. People were getting SMSEs, people thinking that, their bonds were going to be affected by this. And also given the fact that also there are fewer people in this country who are paying taxes, I think he was very much worried, in my view, about where the money was going to come from to make up for the shortfall. But I think political parties like the EFF and even the DA, they've shared ideas with the minister in terms of how we can make up for this shortfall. But I think the president is just defending him because he's a comrade, or because it was actually the ANC that was pushing this thing of value-added tax, which is a paradox, because the ANC has always projected itself as a pro-poor a political party. But I think the challenge that we have on matters of economy is that there is no equilibrium between the demand side and the supply side of the economy. That's why I think we need to create more jobs so we can have more people paying taxes, because in this country, in my view, there are fewer people who are paying taxes, and our economy is being affected by that.
When you read the room at Luthuli House, it would seem to me that there seems to be this growing tension between the presidency and factions within the ANC. How much of Godongwana's predicament is due to internal ANC politics versus a public economic dissatisfaction that we are seeing here?
Look, the bigger scheme of things, the elephant in the room is about the whole conception of the GNU. Some are vehemently and fundamentally opposed to it. And I think this is going to play itself out, interestingly, in the upcoming NGC of the ANC. And a faction that wins this discourse, I think, will be the one that will remain standing. So the minister and the president, they are getting a backlash within the ANC as people who have sort of like sold out because they have abandoned the National Democratic Revolution by working side by side with the DA that is perceived to be to the right of the political spectrum. I mean, we've had people articulating their views in public that it could have been better if the ANC had joined forces with Umkhonto weSizwe or the EFF, as opposed to the DA, which is seen to be vehemently opposed to transformation by some in the ANC.
Let's add another layer here. We've seen vocal pressure from the DA, the EFF, and even the MK party on this issue. What does this moment then reveal, Dr. Breakfast, about the strength and influence of opposition parties in really shaping fiscal policy or indeed holding the executive to account?
The fact of the matter is, one-party dominance is a thing of the past. And the ANC needs to understand this, that gone are those days where it will just bulldoze policies, entrench its hegemony, do as it pleases. So now it needs to read the mood of politics within the legislature before it can make a call on national important issues. But I think the minister misread the whole situation because the ANC doesn't have majority anymore. So I think the ANC needs to be circumspect now. And I mean, what gives rise to coalition formations is a fragmented political environment and the fact that there's no political party that has the majority. And that's the beauty of coalitions because it makes political parties to join forces and to make decisions collectively.
As we are having this discussion, the MK party is also mulling over a possible motion of no confidence in the finance minister. What is your take on this, or any threat of a no motion being tabled in Parliament? Is it symbolic, or could it have real consequences in the current political climate, Dr. Breakfast?
I think they are testing the waters. They are within their right to do that. That's the role of the opposition. But the question is whether that is going to take off the ground or not, whether it will achieve its intended objective. But I mean, I cannot say that they are out of line by doing that. That's the role of the opposition. But of course, I mean, opposition parties, you can't blame them. They are doing what they are elected for. You know, politics about power. When you see a gap, you maneuver. So you can't say political parties who are calling for the minister to step down are out of line.
Right. And as we start wrapping our conversation, the minister has also ruled out further tax hikes or borrowing, citing risk to economic growth. Do you believe this fiscal approach will resonate with ordinary South Africans who are already burdened by high living costs in this country?
Okay, one of the problems that we have is that we have a budget deficit, meaning that we spend more than what we have. So our fiscal policy, in my view, throughout the years has always been an expansionary fiscal policy. But now I think this thing is catching up with us because as I indicated in the beginning, South Africa has a problem. Our tax base system is very low. There are fewer people who are paying taxes, and this thing, we can't sustain it anymore. Therefore, we need to have an economy that is able to create jobs so that the majority of people can pay taxes. That's why we borrow over and over again. But the question is, will we be able to get rid of the debt that we have? So I think we need to find other ways and means of growing the economy, but also having growth that has a trickling down effect so that the poorest of the poor can benefit at the end of the day.
But to add to that, the Treasury says what 1 billion rand is spent daily on debt servicing. In your view, has the government then effectively communicated just the severity of the fiscal crisis to the public? Or is that message getting lost in this political noise that we are hearing?
No, I don't think the government has conveyed a message which is clear to all and sundry in that regard. I mean, the government is facing a serious problem because we have a lot of people who are dependent on the state. We have a welfare state as opposed to a developmental state. Right? We have a state that looks after a lot of people who are poor. And I don't think that the government is at fault by continuing giving those grants because those grants are a buffer. Without those grants, I can bet my bottom dollar we'll have a national crisis because the poor will rise against the powers that be. So in order to have stability, our democracy cannot be consolidated if the powers that be are turning a blind eye to the poorest of the poor. So government is duty bound to look after the poor, but at the same time, we need to create jobs so that the poor can be assimilated and absorbed into the economy. That is extremely important.
Before I let you go, what damage, if any, has this budget backtrack, if you will, done to institutional credibility, especially of the National Treasury? And can that be repaired before a new budget is tabled?
Yeah, I think it has conveyed a negative message internationally. I've been doing a lot of interviews with international media houses, and I think it has affected also our economy negatively. As you know, our economy has not been growing the way it should have. So I think this confusion has really compounded the pace at which our economy should be growing. We really need to make sure that we work together in growing the economy, and not just growing the economy, but also having a trickling down effect so that we can have jobs which are created for the poorest of the poor to benefit.
Dr. Ntsikelelo Breakfast, thank you so much for your time and analysis tonight, helping us give perspective on this very important issue, looking at the political dynamics, of course, of these calls that the Finance Minister stepped down.